We are all born with a script, a set of expectations, traits, and flaws handed down to us by the people who came before. Most of us spend our lives trying to run away from that inheritance, but the tragic story of Silksong teaches us a much harder truth. To truly overcome your nature, you must first have the courage to accept it. To understand Hornet's struggle, we have to look at the two opposing forces flowing through her veins. First, there is the blood of the world. As the daughter of the Pale King, Hornet inherits the lineage of a higher being. But in this universe, divinity is not a gift, it's a parasite. The nature of a higher being is to expand, to rule, and to demand absolute devotion. The Pale King built a beacon of light, but he did so by burying his own children in the abyss to maintain his control. Hornet herself is acutely aware of this dark instinct. She once observed, devotion or destruction. These are the only fates my kind allow. From her father, Hornet inherited a quiet, dangerous urge, the instinct to dominate her environment. When she arrives in Farlu, she doesn't just adapt, she conquers, she climbs. But if she relies solely on this side of her nature, she risks becoming exactly what her father was, a tyrant. But she is only half worm. The other half of her blood belongs to her mother, Hera, and the Weavers. In Farloom, we learn the dark truth of the Weavers' legacy. They weren't just simple craftsmen, they were architects of a gilded cage. To escape their creator, Grandmother Silk, they bound her in a cocoon. But to keep her asleep, they built an oppressive bell-tolling theocracy, forcing the lesser bugs of Farloom to sing eternally to power the machine. And when the burden became too heavy, the Weavers simply fled to Deep Nest, leaving the common bugs to rot in the system they created. Even Hornet's birth was a transaction. She was created as a bargaining chip, a half-deity weapon meant to eventually return to Farloom and cut the threads her ancestors were too cowardly to face. This is the second script written for Hornet. Her mother's side demands that she be a tool, a martyr, someone who sacrifices her own existence to fix the mistakes of the past. To break a cycle, you first have to see it clearly, and in Farloom, Hornet is forced to look into a mirror. Her name is Lace. Lace is the ultimate product of Farloom's design. She is a creature of pure refined silk, beautiful, deadly, and utterly devoted. She stands as the sentinel of the citadel, protecting the very machine that drains the kingdom dry. To Lace, her life has only one purpose: to serve her creators, and eventually sacrifice herself to keep the grand illusion alive. She doesn't question the bells, she doesn't question the cage. She has accepted her tragic fate with a childish, naive pride. But watch how Hornet interacts with her. In their dialogue, Hornet repeatedly refers to Lace as child. It's not just a patronizing insult, it is a profound thematic diagnosis. Hornet looks at Lace and sees her own past. She sees the young, naive spider protectress who once stood guard over the ruins of Deep Nest, blindly defending a dead kingdom because she thought that's what duty meant. Hornet calls Lace a child because Lace has not yet realized that her loyalty is just a beautifully decorated leash. The easiest trap to fall into when you're born into a legacy of tragedy is believing that suffering is your only currency. The Weavers taught Hornet that her value lay in her sacrifice, that her purpose to be used up to mend the world, and for a long time, Hornet believed her. She spent ages acting as the grim protector of Heleness's corpse, waiting for a vessel to come and end the nightmare. But Farloom changes her. By witnessing Lace's blind devotion, Hornet finally recognizes the sickness of her heritage She realizes that sacrificing yourself to a broken system doesn't fix it, it feeds it. Every bug that climbs to the top of the citadel to offer their song is just adding another brick in their own prison. If Hornet defeats Lace and simply takes her place, or if she kills Lace to force her way through, she validates the cycle. She proves that power and violence are the only languages Farloom understands. But Hornet chooses a different path. She doesn't destroy Lace. She defeats her, spares her, and in doing so, teaches her a lesson that no one in the Citadel ever could. Your life has value outside of your sacrifice. You do not have to die with a thread to be whole. This is where the shift happens. Hornet stops running from her weaver blood. She stops viewing her thread as a symbol of her bondage. Instead, she accepts it. She is a weaver. She can spin. She can bind. She can create. But she will no longer let her ancestors dictate what she weaves. She will not weave a shroud for Farloom. She will not weave a weapon to tear it down. As Hornet finally breaches the apex of the Citadel, the true horror of Farloom is laid bare. The kingdom's grand pilgrimage, the promise of spiritual ascension that drove thousands of bugs to climb to these heights, is a lie. They were drawn here by the beautiful music of the bells, only to be systematically harvested, processed, and drained of their life force, all to weave a perpetual golden shroud around Grandmother Silk. The system is perfectly designed. It uses the bug's own desire for purpose and devotion to keep them enslaved. And here, the game presents its most profound choice. In the default ending, Hornet defeats Grandmother Silk, but the sheer weight of the machine collapses around her. With no one else to hold the threads together, Hornet surrenders to the default script of her bloodline. She steps into the hollow space left behind, wraps herself in the silk, and becomes the new captive heart of the Citadel. She becomes the monster she climbed to destroy. It is a chilling reminder of how easy it is to recreate a broken system. When we fight an oppressive structure without changing our fundamental nature, we often just end up wearing the crown of the oppressor. Hornet becomes the new Weaver Queen, a tragic martyr, keeping the cycle of dominance alive. She is powerful, but she is completely broken. But that isn't the true ending, because to truly break the thread, you cannot simply replace the weaver. You have to destroy the loom. When Hornet embraces her full journey, choosing to aid the common folk below and rejecting the sterile logic of the Citadel, she does something her ancestors never had the courage to do. She refuses to rule, and she refuses to be a sacrifice. Instead of stepping into the cocoon, she severs the strings holding Grandmother Silk entirely. She smashes the golden bells. She shatters the machinery of devotion. She doesn't try to fix Farloom's hierarchy or become its benevolent goddess. Her father, the Pale King, tried to build a perfect eternal kingdom through control, and it rotted from the inside out. Hornet learns from his failure. She liberates the kingdom by walking away from it, leaving the future of Farloom completely unwritten, messy, and entirely in the hands of the bugs who live there. That is true liberation. It isn't a flawless new system. It is the courage to let the old toxic structures die, so that something genuinely new can breathe. Hollow Knight was a magnificent tragedy about the inevitability of a collapse. But Silksong is something entirely different. It is an empowering, deeply personal story about the messy, painful, but beautiful act of breaking free. Hornet begins her story bound in a cage, stripped of her identity and weighed down by the massive, invisible expectations of two dead bloodlines. She could have easily run away from who she was, or blindly succumbed to it. Instead, she accepted her identity as a weaver, took her ancestors' tools, and used them to rewrite her own destiny. We all carry threads from our past. We carry the mistakes of our families, the trauma of our environments, and the heavy scripts that society expects us to play. But Silksong reminds us that while we cannot choose where our threads began, we are the ones holding the needle. You don't have to be a martyr for a past you didn't create. You can break the thread, and you can weave something entirely your own.